Actually, it's going to be a lovely start to the day. Plenty of sunshine here. Similar story for Devon and Cornwall, but further east, across southeast England especially, quite a grey start with the risk of the odd spot of rain. But this cloud and rain will clear off towards the continent as we head towards lunchtime. And for many parts of England and Wales, it's a dry day with some bright spells. Scotland and Northern Ireland continue the risk of the odd shower, but I think they've become fewer and further between into the afternoon. And come the end of the afternoon, I think the best of the sunshine will be down towards Devon and Cornwall. A cooler day for most thanks to that northwesterly wind, highs at best reaching around 21 or 22 degrees in the south. Come Monday morning, a bright start for many eastern and central parts, but rain across the west will spread across many areas as we go through the course of the day. Main focus of the rain will be across the north, very little across the south, and that really sets us up for a fairly changeable week. Some dry weather to be had, but also the risk of some rain, especially in the north.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's our summer treat to you. Your chance to win an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Our biggest cash prize of the year so far. With an extra £30,000 in your bank account this year, you could take the ultimate financial holiday and send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could get you those nagging home improvements done, buy that brand new car, or just enable you to kick back and relax for the rest of the year. For a chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2 or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
On election night, we are throwing a party.
The GB News Election Night Watch Party will be live from Essex and you are all invited.
On air from 10 o'clock, we'll have familiar faces from across the channel, entertainment and lots more stuff as we keep our eye on all the results as they come flying in.
If you want to join our live Election Night Watch Party audience, scan the QR code on screen or go to gbnews.com/election party. Congratulations to the GB News winners at this year's Trick Awards.
And the winner of Interview of the Year is... Alistair Stewart reveals his heartbreaking diagnosis to Camilla Tominey.
And the winner is GB News Breakfast. And the winner is Nigel Farage.
And thank you to you, our GB News viewers and listeners, for making us the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do. His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, unlike you. That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frosty in here, isn't it?
He'll have one of me one day.
For dartball practice. Britain's newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's 9 o'clock on television, on radio and online in the United Kingdom and across the world. This is Mark Dolan Tonight. In my big opinion, the American people have no choice but to put Donald Trump in the White House following Joe Biden's catastrophic TV appearance this week. This has become a national security threat for America and the world. In my Take at 10, as woke revellers celebrate illegal migrants crossing the Channel, Glastonbury is a festival of hypocrisy. dumping unwanted tents, taking drugs and effectively cheering on Hamas. The double standards of this 5-day woke fest are there for all to see. Also tonight in the big story, does Reform UK have a problem with racism? Or is it the victim of a right royal stitch-up? Can Nigel Farage survive what has been a bumpy week? Are we asking Britain's best-known political double act, the Hamiltons? And my Mark Meets guest is a man who knew the doomed pop superstar Michael Jackson well. His favourite magician, Liam Sheehan, tells his extraordinary story shortly. 2 hours of big opinion, big debate and big entertainment. Saturday night, and it's your night in. Let's have some fun. Crack open a bottle of something fizzy or a beer or fire up the kettle and let's get to work. Lots to get through, but first, the news headlines and Sam Francis.
'Mark, thank you very much and good evening to you. It's just after 9 o'clock. Well, in the final days before next week's general election, Sir Elton John has led a lineup of celebrities who've now announced their support for Labour. Famous faces, including Jason Manford, Kit Harington and Beverley Knight, joined Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer earlier at a supporters event in London. And there was also this video message from Sir Elton himself.
We're backing Keir and Labour to win this election. There is only one choice. Let's help artists cut through the red tape that prevents them from thriving and contributing to this country's future success. Let's show the world what a creative, prosperous and forward-thinking nation Britain is.
Well, polls suggest a possible landslide win for Labour, but Sir Keir Starmer's warning voters that lack of interest in the election could keep the Conservatives in power. Leaning on support from the likes of Sir Elton John, he's been calling for the Tories to face a democratic reckoning at the ballot box.
This is the final furlong. This is the final mile, the last push. And it's the hardest mile as well. But it's the chance, absolutely the chance, to do for our country what we did for our party and return Britain to the service of working people. British people want change. But the hope has almost been kicked out. They need to be convinced that change is possible.
Elsewhere, political leaders are accusing Nigel Farage of failing to show leadership. Reform UK has now withdrawn support for 3 of its election candidates who were alleged to have made racist remarks, while a campaigner for the party has admitted he's a total fool, he said, for a racist slur against Rishi Sunak. Mr Farage is accusing Channel 4 News, which recorded the undercover footage, of a stitch-up. At news from the US election, President Joe Biden says he still intends to win in November amid calls for him to step down. Speaking in North Carolina earlier, where Democrats are hoping to win the state back from Republicans, he claimed America itself is at stake. He also accused former President Donald Trump of repeatedly lying and claimed that he has the morals of an alley cat. However, after Biden's own performance during this week's debate that sparked concerns, he has addressed the limits of his old age.
I don't walk as easy as I used to. I don't speak as smoothly as I used to. I don't debate as well as I used to. But I know what I do know. I know how to tell the truth. I know right from wrong. And I know how to do this job. I know how to get things done. And I know, like millions of Americans know, when you get knocked down, you get back up.
In other news, 2 men who travelled with missing teenager Jay Slater to the north of Tenerife after attending a music festival have been ruled irrelevant to the police investigation. Firefighters and volunteers have now joined the expanded search efforts for the missing British tourist near the town of Masca. The 19-year-old was last seen there almost a fortnight ago. Here, police have issued a warning over a possible contaminated batch of drugs after a man died and 7 people are in hospital. That man was thought to have taken the sleeping medication Zopiclone before he died. And Cleveland police say the other people affected, also believed to have taken those pills, were taken to North Tees General Hospital. Police are now urging anyone with information to get in touch. And finally, before we hand back to Mark, some sport for you. There'll be no repeat of last Euros final after defending champions Italy have tonight been knocked out this time. They were beaten 2-0 by Switzerland, who could now face England in the quarter-finals. Gareth Southgate's side were the pre-tournament favourites, but their performances so far have been criticised. But the England boss believes tomorrow's match against Slovakia will be a turning point. Those are your latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sam Francis, back in the next hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Sam. Welcome to Mark Dolan Tonight. In the big story, does Reform UK have a problem with racism? Or is it the victim of a right royal stitch-up? I'll be asking Britain's best-known political double act, the Hamiltons. Can Nigel Farage survive a bumpy week? My Mark Meets guest is a man who knew the doomed pop superstar Michael Jackson well. His favourite magician, Liam Sheehan, tells his extraordinary story later in the hour. And you won't want to miss this in my take at 10. As woke revellers celebrate illegal migrants crossing the Channel, Glastonbury is a festival of hypocrisy. Dumping unwanted tents, taking drugs and effectively cheering on Hamas, the double standards of this 5-day woke fest are there for all to see. That's my take at 10. You won't want to miss it. Let me tell you, reacting to the big stories of the day, we have Diana Moran, Benedict Spence and Lisa McKenzie. And the most important part of the show, your messages. They come to my laptop, gbnews.com/your say. And this show has a strict golden rule. We don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. A big 2 hours to come. Glastonbury hypocrites at 10, but first, my big opinion. Oh dear, the US presidential TV debate was a car crash that would have the cast of Top Gear blushing.
Eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare.
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either.
Yikes. And now, in the aftermath of this catastrophic performance, some in the US Democratic Party have suddenly discovered that Joe Biden is not fit for high office. Well, for the rest of us with eyes and ears and any common sense, it was clear all the way back in 2020. He actually didn't even campaign in that election, if you remember, hiding behind the excuse of COVID. He was holed up in his Delaware mansion. Convenient, that. I've said since day one, the man is not right and should not have the privilege and great responsibility of this office of state. And last October, I got dog's abuse for expressing my concerns on this programme that this human ghost of a man was Commander-in-Chief of the biggest military in history, and I had concerns about that. I argued that his tenure in the White House, particularly given the increasingly aggressive actions of Iran, Russia and China, is a national security disaster for America and the free world. This is a clip from my big opinion in October of last year. Take a listen. Confused, doddery kid sniffer in charge is an open door to all tyrants to have a go and try their luck. His supporters say that his health doesn't matter. He's got good people around him, apparently. Is that how democracy works? Did the American people vote for a bunch of interns, backroom boys and policy wonks to actually run the country? Do you remember the good old days, like under Reagan, when the president was actually in charge? Joe Biden's tenure in the White House is an accident waiting to happen. It's bad news for America, and it's bad news for the world. Joe Biden must be removed from power on the grounds of ill health. These are dangerous times. America deserves better. The world deserves better. Joe Biden shouldn't be sat in the Oval Office. He should be sat in a care home, nursing a lukewarm cup of tea, watching reruns of the Golden Girls, who look like sprightly teenagers compared to this mumbling, incoherent bag of bones. If Joe Biden is actually running the country, then I'm a Spice Girl. Posh Spice, obviously. Sometimes scary. Yeah, not sure about that yellow shirt. What was I thinking? But here we are, almost a year later, and this poor man still has access to the nuclear codes, even though he can't remember where he left his glasses or why he went into a room. You hear the word gaslighting a lot these days, don't you? The media do it and politicians do it. What does gaslighting mean? Well, it means telling somebody that something is not happening when they know that it is. And the gaslighting has been strong from the duplicitous Democratic Party, who knew full well how infirm Joe Biden was when they put him up as the main candidate 4 years ago. And they know it now as they stand behind him and circle the wagons. Not least former President Barack Obama, someone that we're supposed to respect, but who insulted anyone with half a brain cell on Twitter last night when he wrote the following. He said, "Bad debate nights happen, trust me, I know. But this election is still a choice between someone who's fought for ordinary folks his entire life and someone who only cares about himself." Bad debate nights happen? Do me a favour. This is disingenuous at best from Obama and a downright lie at worst. But these people are the nice people, folks. The good people. Do keep up. Now, it's clear that Joe Biden will be removed by the American people in November, particularly given Donald Trump's rather restrained performance at that TV debate, where he basically allowed Biden to unravel all by himself. But 5 months is a long time for this clearly unwell man to hold the most important job in the world. Like I said all those months ago in my yellow shirt, Joe has got to go. Your reaction, gbnews.com/your say. I'll get to your opinion shortly, but first, tonight's top pundits. I'm delighted to welcome political commentator Benedict Spence. We also have anarchist and academic Lisa McKenzie and journalist and model, the Green Goddess herself, Diana Moran. Great to see all three of you. Diana, this is not an issue of ageism. This is a man who is not well enough to do the most important job on the planet.
I find it amazing that he's still there and that his wife hasn't said, "Come along, darling, I think it's time that you packed all this up." I work with a lot of people who are his sort of age in the residential homes and clubs for older people, and I think he's got serious problems there.
Definitely. Dr. Jill Biden will actually be the key figure in the weeks ahead, won't she, Benedict, given the fact that there'll be pressure on her to sit her husband down and say, OK, big guy, it's time to walk away.
And I suppose it depends. Does she want home to be somewhere on the East Coast, or does she want home to continue to be the White House? I suppose it's a question of whether or not she is done. You know, we shouldn't perhaps step away from the fact that perhaps she remains very ambitious for her husband, not necessarily for herself, but for her husband. Maybe she still thinks that he's got it in him. Maybe maybe she is deluding herself over all this. Great swathes of the Democrat establishment clearly have, and until earlier this week, many of them were still insisting that he was well, that there was nothing wrong. He was just a little overtired. Very stressful job being president, but now the world has seen that is not really the truth, is it? There's something going on there.
Definitely shame on the Democratic Party, Lisa McKenzie, for gaslighting all of us. We've known since 2020 that this guy was not fit for the job.
Yeah, I remember that night, actually, with the yellow shirt. Yes, I do.
Make it smart,
yes, I do remember.
By the way, that's when I was a Liberal Democrat.
Was it? That week?
I'm neutral now. I have.
No, I think it's quite cruel. The more I see of Joe Biden, the more I think it's cruel. Because I'm not sure, is it his ambition? Is it his wife's ambition? Or is it that the Democrat Party just don't know what to do?
Yeah.
And I think wheeling him out, it's quite cruel, I think.
Is Barack Obama not insulting our intelligence by tweeting that we sometimes have a tough debate on TV that doesn't always go well? What's he on about?
Well, he's being partisan.
Bad debate nights happen, trust me, I know.
He's being partisan. It's what happens in elections, isn't it? People, they get behind
it's shameful, Diana. We're being lied to.
It's just so upsetting to watch. I mean, if he's talking with auto-cue, he's fine. He's dramatic.
Yeah. He and I have that in common.
but unlike you, when he's on his own, he doesn't forget what he's saying, and you are as sharp as can be.
Well, that's very kind of you. Very kind of you to say that. Benedict, does he stay or does he go? What's your reading of the situation?
Oh, honestly, I think it's very... I don't see that he can stay, actually, is the thing. I think it would be... Well, it would be unprecedented to get rid of him. It would be unprecedented to get rid of him. It would be very difficult to then say who it could be that would replace him. And you already know what the narrative would be from the Republicans if they did try to replace him. It's a stitch-up, it's a steal, it's the deep state. They've all, they've seen that Sleepy Joe can't win. You can see Trump on the stump doing that sort of thing. But that's their only hope, because if it is Biden, they've lost.
And then you've got to think about Trump as well. What do we really think about him?
Yeah, I mean, how did you think he handled that debate?
Rather badly, because he was just sneering at the poor chap all the time.
It kind of made Trump look reasonable, actually.
Oh,
do you know? Because Trump was kind of just allowing it to go. It wasn't it wasn't doing his usual sort of, it's all about me. He was actually going, it's about him.
I think Trump realised as this was going on, he thought, if I start to verbally beat this man up on TV, then they're going to be even more incentivised to get rid of him. So actually lay off, because I kind of want this guy.
I think you can see it on his face.
Well, I saw Lizzie Cundy earlier. She'd been on this afternoon. And she said that 66% of the American public think he's going to die before the election.
Crumbs. So we don't want that to happen. We don't want that to happen. But what we need is somebody strong in the White House, because the world is an increasingly dangerous place. But next up in the big story, does Reform UK have a problem with racism, or is it the victim of a right royal stitch-up? I'll be asking Britain's best-known political double act, the Hamiltons. Can Nigel Farage survive what has been a bumpy week? We'll debate that next.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, weekdays from 9 p.m.
The mystery surrounding the disappearance of flight MH370 has perplexed the planet now for 10 years. But now all of a sudden researchers at Cardiff University have piped up and said, oh, we heard a beep. Aerospace engineer, founder of MH370search.com is Richard Godfrey. Richard, are we going to find this thing?
The new research is much more thorough and gone in much more detail. It is picking up acoustic waves under the water. It's not conclusive, but it's a good step forward.
Is this a cover-up job of epic proportions? Do you think something quite sinister happened to this plane? Because it is all very odd.
I think you're right. It is all very odd. It is. We have a lot of data, but we don't have the final analysis, and we won't until we actually find the wreckage. The Indian Ocean is a huge place, 77 million square kilometers. When we find the plane, we can recover the flight data recorder, the cockpit voice recorder. We can learn a lot more.
Do you think someone might have shot it down?
No, the plane flew until it ran out of fuel. The plane was perfectly in working order. There was an active pilot right until the end. So my only theory at the moment is the captain of the plane actually committed a hijack of his own plane. But until we find it, we won't be able to prove that.
We are potentially a step closer now to knowing and to one of the greatest mysteries of recent times anyway, finally being solved. As aerospace engineer there, Richard Godfrey, thank you.
Britain's election channel, the People's Channel.
This election night, we're putting on a party.
And you are invited.
We'll be here with you.
Following all the twists and turns.
As well as all the live reaction from our election night watch party.
With our GB News lineup.
And as morning breaks, we'll be here with breakfast from 6 a.m.
As it becomes clear who the winners and the losers really are.
Vote 2024.
Thursday, the 4th of July.
Only on GB News.
Britain's election channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect And then you throw me into the mix, and trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Joe Biden's got to go. A big reaction to my big opinion on the message board. gbnews.com/your say. This from Dennis, who is a GB News member. Good evening, Dennis. How are you? Dennis says, Mark, it looks as though common sense will prevail and the Americans will be saved a second dose of Joe Biden due to his obvious ill health. Louise says, Mark, Biden's wife talks to him like he's a toddler. I'm not a fan of Biden, but he should never have been allowed to take part in that debate. We've witnessed the decline in his health, and it is cruel. I think even Trump felt sorry for him. Keep those messages coming. gbnews.com/your say. But it's time now for the big story. And an extraordinary race row has exploded following a Channel 4 documentary investigation in which a supposed Reform UK campaigner was heard making appalling racist remarks about the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. Here is a clip from the Channel 4 documentary.
Recruits there, yeah, with guns on the beach, target practice, just shoot them. The ring fence Bradford Stone round and just do that. I was like, you've got these bastards running our country. You must be joking, mate. I've always been a Tory voter. What annoys me is he got in. What's good is he? You tell me, he's just wet. What, Sunak? Useless. Yeah.
Outrageous comments. Here's the response of Reform UK leader Nigel Farage.
What happened over that last weekend was truly astonishing. A tirade of invective abuse directed at the Prime Minister. It didn't ring true. So I checked it out. It turns out the man that did this is an actor. On his own site, he says, I'm a well-spoken actor with an alter ego. I do rough talking. Let me tell you, from the minute he turned up in that office in Clacton and I saw him, he was acting from the very start. He even says on his website, hire me, I do undercover filming. This is a total and utter setup.
However, since then, Reform UK has dropped 3 of its candidates following reports that they had made offensive or racist comments. So does Reform UK have a problem with race? To discuss this, I'm delighted to welcome Britain's best-known political double act, Neil and Christine Hamilton, the Hamiltons. Neil, this dreadful man was campaigning for Reform UK. He said those terrible things. Surely the buck stops with Nigel Farage on this one.
Well, no political party could possibly vet all its activists or people who volunteer to campaign for it. And this fellow, Andrew Parker, whatever his name was, is not a member of UKIP, not UKIP, Reform. In fact, you can't join Reform as such. You can't get a membership of the party, even if you send them any money. So, of course, it's embarrassing for Reform UK that they have somebody speaking in that way who is campaigning for them. But nobody applies to be a campaigner for a political party. And if you look into the Labour Party or the Tory Party, you'll find cranks and misfits who are campaigning for them, knocking on doors and so on as well. In fact, you have to be a bit of a crank or a misfit to campaign for the Tory Party at all these days, don't you? But, we had all these problems in UKIP as well. I don't think it matters very much at all. He's been disowned, and that's that. Yes, they've discovered they've got a few candidates who have also said disgraceful or unacceptable things. But this is an insurgent party which has mushroomed up from nowhere in a very short time. They don't have the infrastructure for vetting that the old parties have got. UKIP had the same problems years ago. Does it really matter? What really matters is what does the party propose for the public at large? And I can't believe this is going to have the slightest impact upon Reform's performance on Thursday next. It's a distraction which the other parties are using to try to disguise their own failings. What I'm amazed is they want to give Farage the oxygen of publicity, which, if they were sensible, they would seek to deny him, because what he hates most of all is not being in the news, not being noticed, not having the opportunity to grandstand. So I think that they've shot themselves in the foot, actually, by making a meal of this.
Christine, this party has indeed mushroomed up, I should say, but perhaps they're on the magic mushrooms. Why do you think that the party is attracting these dreadful people with their disgusting views?
Well, you say these dreadful people with their disgusting views. We've had, is it 3 candidates and this fellow who may or may not be an actor. As to the truth of the Channel 4 thing, only time will tell. Most of us have absolutely no idea whether he was legitimate or not, whether Nigel is right that it was a complete set-up job. I agree that this needs to be pursued because we, for example, have been the subject of television programmes setting us up way back in the 1980s when Panorama used some incredibly devious tactics to stitch Neil up. So, you know, it's very easy for these television programmes to do it. I have no idea whether this fellow is genuine. But, you know, as Neil said, I think it's wrong to make a huge meal of this because Nigel has knocked it on the head. Anybody who's still worried about it will have to say, well, let's wait and see. But, you know, every party has racists within it. The Tory party does, the Labour Party does. Some are anti-black, some are anti-Muslim, some are anti-Jewish, and they all have them. And there are people, you know, people under the woodwork, under the dead leaves that no party really wants to be caught on camera, especially when they think they're at a private function. So I don't think it's unique to reform.
I mean, there are numerous people who were Conservative MPs in the last Parliament who are not standing at this election because of their own indiscretions of one kind or another. So does that tar the entire Conservative Party with their brush? No, of course it doesn't. So I think that this is a typical kind of election squall which will blow itself out very quickly.
Indeed, and of course we know Labour had a well-reported problem with anti-Semitism. However, Christine, before I hear from the Prime Minister and Ed Davey, will what has happened this week dent Reform UK's performance on Thursday? Do you think it will affect their votes?
I shouldn't think so, no, and there'll be no way of telling, to be perfectly honest. I think, of course, there have been 2 storms as far as reform is concerned. There's been this one, and then there's the storm when Nigel said his remarks about Putin, which I think was wrong. He shouldn't have said it because it gives Putin an excuse for what he's done. And that caused quite a storm, and that might have turned quite a few people off. But there won't really be any way, I wouldn't think, of measuring it unless the opinion pollsters go around afterwards and say, well, would you have voted for reform if they hadn't done this? So, no, I think they're heading for a pretty good result, frankly, reform.
I mean, the so-called racism story is a typical kind of Westminster bubble media storm, isn't it? The general public at large have made up their minds already long since. First of all, they're going to get rid of the Tories and consign them halfway to oblivion. And although nobody really wants Starmer in a Labour government, that's going to be the consequence of it. And they don't care, frankly, because they want to get rid of the lot who's currently in. But because reform suddenly has bubbled up to get anything between 15 or 20% of the vote, plus the other parties like UKIP that are also standing in this election, which will have a big effect on the total result when they're combined. That's the reality of this. And there's going to be a sea change which is going to affect the landscape of British politics for the next 5 or 10 years. And the key question is whether the Conservative Party is going to wake up to the reasons why they're facing the abyss. And if they don't, then reform is going to replace them, possibly.
OK, fascinating stuff. Well, you say it's a Westminster bubble story, not for the Prime Minister, who was understandably deeply offended by the remarks of that alleged Reform UK campaigner. Let's take a listen to Rishi Sunak.
Well, my 2 daughters have to see and hear Reform people who campaign for Nigel Farage calling me an effing. It hurts and it makes me angry, and I think he has some questions to answer. When you see Reform candidates and campaigners seemingly using racist and misogynistic language and opinions, seemingly without challenge, I think it tells you something about the culture within the Reform Party. Our politics and country is better than that. It's my duty to call out this corrosive and divisive behaviour.
And let's hear from the leader of the Liberal Democrats, Sir Ed Davey, on this issue.
Liberal Democrats share no values with Mr Farage. He can sort himself out. My job as Liberal Democrat leader is to tell you what we're about. I want to fight a positive campaign about how we rescue our NHS, make sure we get the investment in health and care, make sure we sort out the cost of living problems that people are really suffering under, and deal with things like the environmental issues like sewage. You know, and I think people get fed up in this campaign when there's all these diversions and nastiness. They want to know what you're going to do for them, and that's what Liberal Democrats are going to say.
Responding to Mr Farage's claims, a spokesperson for my old employers, Channel 4, said the following: "We strongly stand by our rigorous and duly impartial journalism, which speaks for itself. We met Mr Parker for the first time at Reform UK's headquarters, where he was a Reform Party canvasser. We did not pay the Reform UK canvasser or anyone else in this report. Mr Parker was not known to Channel 4 News and was filmed covertly via an undercover operation." Listen, Neil, I've only got a couple of seconds left. How well do you think Reform UK can do on Thursday? How many seats do you think they could bag?
Well, the first past the post-electoral system is very difficult to predict until you get up beyond sort of 25 or 30%, excuse me, of the vote. So I wouldn't like to name a figure. I've seen as many as 18 being predicted by certain pollsters, and as few as 3. So it's anybody's guess, depending on the turnout. That's another factor that nobody can predict. You know, how many people are actually going to turn out and vote on Thursday? That's going to be one of the most important factors, because inertia is often actually the biggest factor in an election.
Christine Hamilton, you are the last word, so you get the last word.
Well, I think just going back to the original question, watching Rishi Sunak just then, I think there'll be a big backwash of sympathy for him because of what was said, whether it was a set-up or not. It must have been deeply hurtful for him. And the reference he made to his daughters having to be aware of those sort of remarks being made about their father, I think that will cause a massive sympathy for him. Whether that translates into any extra votes, who knows?
Neil, Christine Hamilton, fantastic to have you on the show. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday evening. I've got no doubt there'll be a drop of Pinot Grigio involved. I certainly hope so. But next up, are you one of the millions of people who feel politically homeless and don't know how to vote next week? There you go. I've turned into Joe Biden. Continue to read script from here. What do you think? Are you politically homeless? We'll debate that next.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Over the coming days, it's going to be fairly mixed out there. Some of us will see some sunshine, but there still will be some rain from time to time. And in fact, we've still got this area low pressure across parts of Wales and northern England, giving some cloud and rain here this evening. That will sink its way southeastwards, weakening as it does so. So very little rainfall across the south come the end of the night. To the north of it, some clear skies, but also still a rash of showers across parts of Scotland. Under the clear skies, temperatures just falling into single figures, but under the cloud, temperatures holding up around 15 or 16 degrees. So as we start Sunday morning, we continue with some showers across parts of Scotland, brought in on a fairly keen wind still. For many eastern and southern parts of Scotland, however, it should be largely dry here with some sunshine. The odd shower for Northern Ireland, but across parts of Northern England, Wales and the Midlands, actually, it's going to be a lovely start to the day. Plenty of sunshine here. Similar story for Devon and Cornwall, but further east, across southeast England especially, quite a grey start with the risk of the odd spot of rain. But this cloud and rain will clear off towards the continent as we head towards lunchtime. And for many parts of England and Wales, it's a dry day with some bright spells. Scotland and Northern Ireland continue the risk of the odd shower, but I think they become fewer and further between into the afternoon. And come the end of the afternoon, I think the best of the sunshine will be down towards Devon and Cornwall. A cooler day for most, thanks to that northwesterly wind, highs at best reaching around 21 or 22 degrees in the south. Come Monday morning, a bright start for many eastern and central parts, but rain across the west will spread across many areas as we go through the course of the day. Main focus of the rain will be across the north, very little across the south, and that really sets us up for a fairly changeable week. Some dry weather to be had, but also the risk of some rain, especially in the north.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do. His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, and unlike you. That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frothy in here, isn't it?
You'll have one of me one day.
For dartball practice. Britain's newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
On election night, we are throwing a party.
The GB News Election Night Watch Party will be live from Essex and you are all invited.
On air from 10 o'clock, we'll have familiar faces from across the channel, entertainment and lots more stuff as we keep our eye on all the results as they come flying in.
If you want to join our live Election Night Watch Party audience, scan the QR code on screen or go to gbnews.com/election party.
Well, it's been a bumpy week for Nigel Farage. Will it affect their performance on Thursday when the country goes to the polls? Well, this from Peter on the message board, gbnews.com/your say. Mark, why don't you interview people that know what they're talking about? That man was an actor and he was acting. It says so on his webpage. And as for Farage saying what he said about Ukrainian invasion and somehow justifying the invasion, he said it before the invasion and warned it was going to happen. How about you talk to informed people in the future? This is just uninformed talk show fodder, says Peter. Well, Peter, you're absolutely entitled to your view. It is your word against that of Channel 4, so I'll allow my viewers and listeners to make up their own minds. But folks, whilst all of the main parties fight it out for your vote on Thursday, it seems that the don't knows and the undecideds may hold the balance of power. But is this because the public have lost faith with all of the main parties? That is certainly the view of indie rock band Belden Haig and their brilliant frontman Justin Skelton, who's released this highly entertaining single called Elected. Let's take a listen. If I had my way, that would definitely go to #1. The single is called Elected. I'll give details in just a moment about how you can listen to that record. But the genius behind it joins me now. Justin, welcome to Mark Dolan tonight. What inspired you to record this song?
Well, I think that politicians... I actually wrote most of this song decades ago. And then we dusted it down and developed it a little bit more about a month ago, and then released it. And I think it speaks to the fact that politicians are patronizing, they're smug, they're arrogant, they use cheap tricks to try to manipulate the way that we think and the way that we vote for them. And that was the same decades ago when I first wrote the song, and actually not that much has changed in the meantime. And so I think a lot of what Elected is about how people use press little buttons, how politicians press little buttons in all of us in order to move us one way or another. And I think that's really at the heart of the song. It's a pretty cynical song.
I think it's a cracking tune, and I love the message behind it. How's it been received?
I think we're on around 400,000 streams on YouTube at the moment in like 2 weeks. And we never intended actually to release it so quickly. We wanted to have it ready for our Fringe performance because we're playing the Fringe at Edinburgh this year. on the 8th and the 9th and the 15th and the 17th and the 21st and 22nd at Whistle Binkies, and then on the 25th at the Liquid Rooms. I hope you don't mind me plugging that. But
I know Whistle Binkies very well. I think it's on Nidri Street in Edinburgh. Great venue.
You are spot on. It is. It's a great venue, and so we wanted to have it ready for our Fringe performance, and then of course Rishi Sunak took everybody by surprise, and announced the election on the 20th, I think, of May. And we recorded this version of the song, I think, on the 20th of May. So I had to get it mixed, get the video done, and get it out as quickly as we could. But yeah, and it probably looks like that as well. You know, I think there's a sort of there's a spontaneity to the way that we did the video, which if we'd stopped and thought about it too much, we might not have done it that way. But that's the beauty of creating these things.
Well, there you go. Let me tell you, the band are called Belden Haig. The single is called Elected. You can hear it on Apple Music. You can hear it and watch it on YouTube and other streaming platforms. Stay with us, Justin. Let's bring in my top pundits, if I can. We've got Lisa. We've got the fantastic, wonderful green goddess herself, Diana Moran, and Benedict Spence. Do you think it's a concern, Benedict, the public are so disengaged with its election and so many millions of people feel politically homeless?
I do think it's a concern. It's not a surprise, though, and I don't think you can ask people to be engaged in an election where ultimately the two major parties are so utterly unenthusing. And the minor parties, frankly, are, in the case of the Liberal Democrats, just sort of attempting to be almost sort of character actors. Reform are very raw, and the Green Party are effectively just a sort of a further left-wing version of the Labour Party, which is already not very popular. I think it's simply, therefore, a reflection of the political landscape. That's up to politicians themselves to address, because it is in their interests to get people to come out and vote. Fundamentally, this has been caused by the incredibly poor performance of the Conservative Party over the last few years. That's, I think, largely where the blame can be laid, given that in previous elections, Boris Johnson, for instance, was able to muster a great swathe of the vote. So ultimately, what it requires is for at least one party to enthuse people. Right now, there really isn't one, I don't think.
Well, that's right. I mean, Lisa McKenzie, the polls will tell you a Labour government is coming, but nobody's particularly excited, even Labour supporters.
No, I don't think this is that troubling, actually, that people are sort of voting with their disinterest. I think, actually, it's a sign of democracy, that democracy is working, that, you know, none of the above is a choice, isn't it? I don't think on Thursday... I think there's going to be a few shocks, actually, or Friday. I think there's going to be a few shocks. I'm not sure this landslide is going to be the landslide that perhaps they think. I think there's going to be a lot of very marginal seats, you know, Labour winning by 100 votes, etc. I think that's going to really shift Westminster power dynamics. So I'm not concerned that people are disinterested. I think it's actually a sign that that democracy is working.
OK. Diana, do you feel politically homeless?
I'm confused by it all. I have actually made my decision. I had a postal vote, and I've done it. But I'm still listening to all that's going on, and I think we're in for huge surprises on Friday morning, of course.
Definitely. Justin, you get the last word. What do you think is going to happen on Thursday? I think you're in Lisbon in Portugal right now. Have you voted?
No, but I'm coming back on Thursday, so I'll vote on Thursday. I obviously think that Labour's going to win by a huge majority, and I hope that they do something really imaginative and bold and ambitious with that majority. I think that's a huge opportunity, and I really hope they don't squander that. You know, people want to be happier in the United Kingdom. You know, we talk a lot about growth, but actually we want to have a happier and better society. And if you've got a huge majority, you've got a big opportunity to deliver that. And so there's a big responsibility there. And I'd like to see some genuine change with that.
There you go. My thanks to Belden Haig frontman Justin Skelton, whose new single, Elected, is out now. Brilliant stuff. Well, what a great conversation that was. And folks, lots more to come. I will be dealing with the wild hypocrisy of Glastonbury at 10 o'clock. You won't believe the story that I've got for you. But next up, we've got my Mark Meets guest. It's the man who knew doomed pop superstar Michael Jackson very well. That's right, this is the guy that knew Michael Jackson intimately well, his favourite magician, Liam Sheehan, who tells his extraordinary story next.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
I've got a grade 3 astrocytoma brain tumour. Once I was diagnosed, I tried to do my claim with my insurance company and was rejected. They then also cancelled my life insurance and also cancelled my wife's policies as well.
And this is Zurich Insurance, John.
This is Zurich,
and their point was, because you'd had some dizzy spells, which you hadn't told them about, they say dizzy spells equates to a brain tumour, which there's no evidence to support that.
I was with King's College Hospital. They ignored them. King's College Hospital were the experts.
So you were expecting £25,000?
Yeah, that was a critical illness claim.
Critical illness, because you've got a critical illness. Clearly, it couldn't be more critical, could it?
No.
Michelle, you've got a lovely, poorly husband, and you're also worrying about paying the bills and what the future holds.
Yeah.
What impact is this having on you on a day-to-day basis?
I try not to think too much about the future because it does upset me. I'm kind of thinking, when John does go, I'm left with a mortgage to pay and 2 young children.
How old are your kids?
5 and 3.
Right.
So it's incredibly tough.
And are you working?
I haven't worked since having the children.
Right.
And that's a decision we made when we had children.
In the grand scheme of things, this amount of money is a drop in the ocean for a company like Zurich.
Yeah, because I think they could make all this go away.
I've read some of the statement. Zurich statement, we're sorry to hear of the very difficult circumstances Mr. Rendler's family are experiencing. You're terminally ill, and they're calling that difficult circumstances.
The People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Coming up in just 10 minutes' time in my Take at 10, as woke revellers celebrate illegal migrants crossing the Channel, Glastonbury is a festival of hypocrisy. Dumping unwanted tents, taking drugs and effectively cheering on Hamas, the double standards of this 5-day woke fest are there for all to see. Do not miss an explosive Take at 10 at the top of the hour. But first, Mark Meets. And this evening, I'm delighted to welcome a man who has entertained one of the greatest entertainers in history, Michael Jackson. From mind-bending mentalism to captivating close-up magic, Liam Sheehan is a world-renowned magician who has travelled the globe, sharing his mesmerising gifts, which even captivated the king of pop. Let's take a look at the big man in action.
Cup your hand like this, and I pour the salt in, just this way. Okay. It's very hard to kind of gather it, isn't it? Yeah. Is that correct? Yeah. But I'm going to actually do it here, and I'm going to show you the amount of salt that I think that I have in my body. Okay. And you tell me when you think that I have enough, all right? So you can see where. No, I think we should use more.
How much you have in your body at the moment?
Yeah. So that's fairly. That would be a considerable amount of salt. On. So you might just hold that. Okay. And you know when you take this salt into your body, sometimes it can kill you in actual fact. But being a magician, it's so easy to get rid of the salt. It has completely vanished.
Extraordinary stuff. 1,000 years ago, he'd have been burned at the stake. Liam Sheehan, welcome to Mark Dolan Tonight.
Hi, Mark. How are you keeping?
Well, I'm very well. It's great to have you on the show. How did you first get into magic?
I got into magic, Mark, quite a long time ago. I just had an interest in, on the art of magic and how it was done, and the fact that you can entertain people by doing stuff that is highly unusual just intrigued me, and I got into it and I developed it over the years.
How much of what you do is a God-given gift, and how much is learnt?
I'd say learned about 40%, God-given gift maybe about 60%. So there's just that little bit of a balance there, really.
Yeah, for example, the mind reading, Liam, are you slightly psychic? I mean, can you tell what I'm thinking now, or would you be able to unlock what's in my head?
No, not from this distance, I wouldn't be. But, there are techniques to do it using like just psychology, linguistic programming and stuff like that. But it's really, it's an up-close thing, really.
For sure. When did you first encounter Michael Jackson, Liam?
Well, first of all, how I encountered Michael Jackson is that Michael came here on a visit from Paris, I think, at the time. I think he came out of Paris because he was being hassled by the paparazzi. And he stayed in a small town here called Castletown Roach, and he stayed in a castle, Blackwater Castle. And he booked out the whole castle for his stay. And what actually happened was that Michael came to the castle, he booked out the whole place, and he came downstairs one night and he found a business card that I had been there previously. I was actually the owner's best man previously at his wedding, and he obviously made some inquiries about me. And then he went to the owner and he asked, would it be possible to get me down to do some magic for himself and his family? So I got a call from the owner, Patrick, and all I was told is somebody is here looking for some entertainment. I didn't actually know it was Michael Jackson at all. I had no idea it was him until I got down.
And what were your impressions of the great man?
My impressions were fantastic. Like when I actually got down to the castle and I saw a guy sitting at the table with his family, and I thought to somebody impersonating Michael Jackson because, such a surprise. But the owner came in and I said, my God, Patrick, is there an impersonation thing going on here or something? No, he said, that is Michael Jackson. He's actually staying here. And of course, I nearly died because I was a fan. I was a big fan of Michael Jackson. And I said, how am I going to entertain him? He is, friends with Uri Geller and David Blaine and Copperfield and all those. And there's a little magician from Cork trying to entertain him. But it worked out well. I was preparing to do some stuff, and he just walked in behind me and he just introduced himself. He said, you must be Liam, I'm Michael, as if I didn't know. So I had to kind of hold everything together and, just do what I do. I am experienced in doing close-up magic and a lot of experience with people and with celebrities. So I just had to hold it together and perform and do my job.
And were you able to read his mind? Was he thinking about Bubbles, the monkey?
No, he wasn't thinking about Bubbles. I did one or two things about some dates. I asked him to think of a date, and I revealed the date to him, and he was absolutely fascinated with this. He loved magic, but he actually, he had great time for people who perform magic. He was fascinated on how magic was done, really. And he was just a very quiet. He was a lovely man, really. He was a lovely man, in my opinion, with a lovely family as well.
Was there an element of magic, do you think, Liam, in the way that he performed? When you think of the moonwalk, which was a bit like a magic trick, it looked like somehow he was just sliding on the ground.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I think that he used to study Fred Astaire, as far as I know, and Fred Astaire used to do something like that. But there was magic. The man was gifted, and even in his movements were fantastic. And, you know, he was a very simple man. He like, his stay in Cork actually was, and in Blackwater Castle, he was treated very normally. You know, he wasn't looked at as a big superstar, which he was, but, you know, our job was to try and just be as normal as we possibly could to him, and he appreciated that. You know, he respected that we didn't hassle him, or, you know, everything was nice and calm and collective during his stay.
Liam, briefly, if you can, a couple of seconds, what was your reaction to the sad news that he'd passed away, likely from a drug overdose?
Yeah, I was devastated, because I actually was, because in his time here, Mark, there was no drugs, there was no drink. He was enjoying his time here with his family, with his kids, and he, you know, loved the simple things like porridge in the morning, which he used to make for him, and he liked apple tart and cream, but there was
there you go.
no.
Well, look, Liam, let me interrupt you, because I want to make sure our viewers can find you online. liamsheehan.ie to book the great man. Thank you, Liam. We'll catch up soon. I'll be dealing with the hypocrites of Glastonbury next.
Warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Over the coming days, it's going to be fairly mixed out there. Some of us will see some sunshine, but there still will be some rain from time to time. And in fact, we've still got this area of low pressure across parts of Wales and northern England, giving some cloud and rain here this evening. That will sink its way southeastwards, weakening as it does so. So very little rainfall across the south come the end of the night. To the north of it, some clear skies, but also still a rash of showers across parts of Scotland. Under the clear skies, temperatures just falling into single figures, but under the cloud, temperatures holding up around 15 or 16 degrees. So as we start Sunday morning, we continue with some showers across parts of Scotland, brought in on a fairly keen wind still. For many eastern and southern parts of Scotland, however, it should be largely dry here with some sunshine. The odd shower for Northern Ireland, but across parts of northern England, Wales and the Midlands, actually, it's going to be a lovely start to the day. Plenty of sunshine here. Similar story for Devon and Cornwall, but further east, across southeast England especially, quite a grey start with the risk of the odd spot of rain. But this cloud and rain will clear off towards the continent as we head towards lunchtime. And for many parts of England and Wales, it's a dry day with some bright spells. Scotland and Northern Ireland continue the risk of the odd shower, but I think they become fewer and further between into the afternoon. And come the end of the afternoon, I think the best of the sunshine will be down towards Devon and Cornwall. A cooler day for most, thanks to that northwesterly wind, highs at best reaching around 21 or 22 degrees in the south. Come Monday morning, a bright start for many eastern and central parts, but rain across the west will spread across many areas as we go through the course of the day. Main focus of the rain will be across the north, very little across the south, and that really sets us up for a fairly changeable week. Some dry weather to be had, but also the risk of some rain, especially in the north.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
£30,000 in tax-free cash really could be yours. It's our biggest cash prize of the year so far, and you could be getting that winning call from us to tell you that you're our next Great British Giveaway winner.
You're joking? Really? Seriously? It's not a wind up, is it?
I'm slipping neck. Oh dear.
Oh my God! This is amazing!
I'm in shock. Like I said, I've never won anything like this.
That is absolutely fantastic. We're over the moon. Thank you!
For a chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Congratulations to the GB News winners at this year's Trick Awards.
And the winner of Interview of the Year is...
Alistair Stewart reveals his heartbreaking diagnosis to Camilla Tominey.
And the winner is GB News Breakfast. And the winner is Nigel Farage.
And thank you to you, our GB News viewers and listeners, for making us the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This election night, we're putting on a party.
And you are invited.
We'll be here with you.
Following all the twists and turns.
As well as all the live reaction from our election night watch party.
With our GB News lineup.
And as morning breaks, we'll be here with breakfast from 6 a.m.
As it becomes clear who the winners and the losers really are.
Vote 2024.
Thursday, the 4th of July.
Only on GB News.
Britain's election channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates.
You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do. His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, unlike you. That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frosty in here, isn't it?
He'll have one of me one day.
Yeah, for dartball practice. Britain's newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, it's 10 o'clock. On television, on radio and online, in the United Kingdom and across the world, this is Mark Dolan Tonight. In my take at 10, as woke revellers celebrate illegal migrants crossing the Channel, Glastonbury is a festival of hypocrisy. Dumping unwanted tents, taking drugs and effectively cheering on Hamas. The double standards of this 5-day woke fest are there for all to see. I will be dealing with the hypocrites of Glastonbury in no uncertain terms in just 2 minutes' time. You won't want to miss it. On National Armed Forces Day, we've seen stunning tributes to our brave heroes from King Charles and Queen Camilla. The defence of our realm has never been more important. Plus, Princess Anne health latest. How is she doing? Will she make a speedy recovery? And who is the most powerful royal? The Queen of US Royal Reporting, Kinsey Schofield, will reveal all shortly. Plus, tomorrow's newspaper front pages, a packed show, lots to get through. I'll be dealing with the Glastonbury hypocrites in no uncertain terms. In 2 minutes' time, you won't want to miss it. Sparks will fly. But first, the news headlines and Sam Francis.
Mark, thank you very much, and good evening to you. It's just coming up to 2 minutes past 10. The top story tonight, Sir Keir Starmer's been leaning on celebrity support during one of his final campaign rallies before next week's general election. Comedian Bill Bailey joined the Labour leader at an event for supporters in Westminster this evening, which also heard from the likes of Jason Manford, James Norton, Kit Harington and Beverly Knight. And there was also this video message from Sir Elton John.
We're backing Keir and Labour to win this election. There is only one choice. Let's help artists cut through the red tape that prevents them from thriving and contributing to this country's future success. Let's show the world what a creative, prosperous and forward-thinking nation Britain is.
Well, polls are suggesting a possible landslide win for Labour, but Sir Keir Starmer warned earlier that voters' lack of interest in the election could keep the Conservatives in power. Leaning on the support from likes of Sir Elton John, he's calling for the Tories to face a democratic reckoning at the ballot box.
This is the final furlong. This is the final mile, the last push. And it's the hardest mile as well. But it's the chance, absolutely the chance, to do for our country what we did for our party and return Britain to the service of working people. British people want change. But the hope has almost been kicked out. They need to be convinced that change is possible.
Sir Keir Starmer there. Well, elsewhere, political leaders are accusing Nigel Farage of failing to show leadership. Reform UK's withdrawn support for 3 election candidates alleged to have made racist remarks, while a campaigner's admitted he's a total fool for a racist slur he made against Rishi Sunak. Mr Farage is now accusing Channel 4 News, which recorded the undercover footage, of a stitch-up. In other news, a man's died after what police are describing as a firearms incident in Luton. Police were investigating reports of a gunshot and attended a home on St Kilda Road just before 9 o'clock last night. The firearm was discharged inside the house before officers entered, injuring the man, who was sadly pronounced dead despite immediate first aid being offered. The incident has now been referred to the police watchdog. And police in Greater Manchester have shot and killed an out-of-control XL bully dog, the banned breed, after it attacked a woman there. Officers were called to reports of a dangerous dog last night after members of the public had failed to regain control of the animal. Footage you can see here showing the moments of that interception by police shows the officers firing at the dog multiple times as it ran through a residential street in Eccles. The owner could reportedly be heard shouting, "Please don't kill my dog." The victim is still receiving treatment and 2 men have been arrested after confronting officers. And the prison service says it doesn't tolerate staff corruption after reports that an officer's been caught on video having sex with an inmate in their cell. It's said to have happened at Wandsworth Jail in South London. The Metropolitan Police say a woman has been arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sam Francis. I'll have your next update at 11 o'clock.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Sam. Welcome to Mark Dolan Tonight. Our National Armed Forces are being celebrated today. We've seen stunning tributes from King Charles and Queen Camilla. The defence of our realm has never been more important. Plus, Princess Anne and her health latest. Who is the most powerful royal is another question. I'll be putting all of that to the Queen of US Royal Reporting, Kinsey Schofield, who's with me shortly. Plus, in the last word, in an extraordinary political development, are the Liberal Democrats going to win more seats than the Conservatives and become the official party of opposition in the House of Commons? And as Elton John backs Labour, should celebs be getting involved in politics? I'll be asking our top Fleet Street insider. Plus, tomorrow's newspaper front pages and tonight's top pundits. This evening, Benedict Spence, Diana Moran and Dr. Lisa Mackenzie. A packed hour, those papers are coming, but first, my take at 10. A BBC neutrality row has broken out at Glastonbury, where Countryfile and BBC Radio 4 presenter Anita Rani enthusiastically agreed with a guest on stage who ranted about, and I quote, a shit 14 years of Tory rule, with the Conservatives having, quote, taken the heart out of the country and squeezed it. Now, this doesn't strike me as crime of the century. Many would agree with those words. But it puts paid to any idea that the stars on the BBC, who are remunerated off the back of an obligatory tax that old ladies face jail for not paying, is in any way politically neutral. Meanwhile, this supposedly kind and inclusive festival has seen the waving of Palestinian flags, which, given the current war in Gaza, some consider to be offensive to Jews and offering support to terrorists. Did these revellers forget that the horrific attacks on October the 7th focused on a similar type of music festival to theirs, where hundreds of peace-loving people, young people, girls and boys like them, were mown down in a hail of bullets? The others, who were there to sing and dance and have a good time, were raped, stabbed, burned, strangled, or taken as hostages. But yeah, Israel bad. From the river to the sea, man. Well, it's Glastonbury, so from the river to the mud. And in extraordinary scenes last night, revellers celebrated migrants in dinghies illegally breaking into the UK. which some could consider to be a celebration of death, given the terrible drownings that we've seen. If you're watching the show right now, there's a band playing and a packed crowd are passing around a huge fake dinghy with mocked-up asylum seekers on board. A bit ironic, therefore, that the festival that these misguided do-gooders are attending is itself protected by a 13-foot high, 4.5-mile long reinforced metal fence, which is impregnable. You can't even dig a tunnel. Bad news for Hamas, who are probably headlining the pyramid stage. This extraordinary construction is the kind of border wall that even Donald Trump would consider excessive. For all of their support for lawbreakers in the Channel, not a single person is able to enter the Glastonbury Festival without the correct accreditation, without the organisers knowing exactly who's coming in and that they have a right to be there. Imagine if the country was like that. We can but dream. Glastonbury is an annual ultra-woke pilgrimage in which the whole of North London descends on Somerset for 5 days of double vodkas and double standards. It's held up as an example of a communal way of life and the rejection of capitalism and inequality. Except it is an oversubscribed commercial event with big-name corporate sponsors on board. The cost of a ticket to this experiment in communism is £355, plus a £5 booking fee. Doesn't sound very egalitarian to me. The shows are fronted by millionaire headliners who fly around the globe on a private jet. And those considering buying a couple of pints at the beer tent and a vegan sausage roll may need to consider taking out a second mortgage to feed themselves at this anti-capitalist party. I say mortgage because the bulk of this crowd are crushingly middle class. And in spite of the strong eco-message underpinning the whole affair, every few years the organisers have to take a year off, a so-called fallow year, so that the depleted fields can begin to recover from 5 days of drunken wokery. The impact on this natural environment is nothing short of devastating, with mountains of litter and thousands of plastic tents left behind by the socially conscious partygoers who, don't forget, have spent 5 days hoovering up more than just lukewarm Carlsberg lager. It is, after all, a festival of drug use. The illegal narcotics that these woke numpties shove up their nose, in their arm and up their backside bankroll international drug cartels, feed crime, destroy communities and lead to devastated lives. Oh, and death. But these are the good people, folks. Do keep up. Now, full disclosure, I've performed at Glastonbury several times and I had a great time. The people involved in running it are a delight. It is a world-famous event, a great British success story, and long may it continue. There's a lot of volunteering and good causes are supported. But please don't tell me this is a socialist utopia. The Glastonbury Festival is more capitalist than a high street bank. You pay an arm and a leg to get in, and its borders are better protected than any nation. Glastonbury is a festival of not just music, but of wild hypocrisy. So, a mock-up of a dinghy was passed around the crowd last night at Glastonbury, supposedly making a comment about illegal immigration. It is illegal. People die in the Channel. But these woke, virtue-signalling music revellers seem to think it's a ruse to make such a mockery of what is essentially a terrible crime and which is leading to an economic, humanitarian and national security disaster. Let's get the views now of my top pundits. I'm delighted to have political commentator Benedict Spence, journalist and model Diana Moran, and anarchist and academic Dr. Lisa Mackenzie. Dr. Lisa, what a load of hypocrites.
I agree. I hate Glastonbury. I have hated it all my life. It's just a white, middle-class smug fest. I used to live in East London and it was great this weekend because you see less hipsters everywhere and it was absolutely obvious where they were. So I have no love for this thing at all. I hate it. And also the idols that were the band while they were throwing around apparently Banksy made the dinghy. That's the sort of talk on Twitter. The Idols, Posh Boys, had an album cover of them standing outside a council estate once. So I have no nice things to say about Glastonbury, the white middle class that sort of flock to it, the hipsters and the hypocrites who play there. Is that clear?
Well, it is. Listen, let me be very clear that I do think Glastonbury is an amazing event. It's a world-class spectacle. Elton John was incredible last year as the headliner. I thought it was one of the gigs of his career. I'm very proud of Glastonbury, just like Wimbledon, just like the FA Cup final, you name it. You know, I think it's a great, great event. But I think the hypocrisy is spellbinding. Diana Moran, your reaction to this dinghy, which is mocking the devastating cost of human life in people crossing the Channel at a music festival?
I think that's absolutely hideous. It's totally, totally wrong. But I loved Glastonbury. I'm a Somerset born and bred person from just up the road from there. And at the beginning, it was a wonderful thing. But exactly as you've said, Mark, it's been taken over, capitalist, all these drug users going in and out as well. It's just become the most awful shambles. Such a shame.
Indeed, Benedict, the irony is lost on these revellers that whilst they talk about equality and they reject capitalism, they're spending 10 quid on a pint of lager. The ticket to the event is approaching £400, and they want open borders, presumably, except there's an enormous 4.5-mile fence that surrounds Glastonbury itself.
Oh, of course, and with any luck, they'll keep the fence up and all of these people can stay there for a lot longer so that actually we can all enjoy East London for a lot longer. I don't know what it is that they are trying to say with this dinghy. I was sort of under the impression that we're told that people who cross the sea in these boats are at great risk, at great peril from some disaster beneath, and presumably that means, you know, the metaphor here is that Glastonbury, you know, people attending Glastonbury are, if anything, the danger to these people because, you know, that's what they're sort of floating on. It's one of those things, though, isn't it, where, you know, we are actually quite good, as you say, at creating these sort of cultural institutions, these cultural moments. Many of them originally organic, things like the FA Cup final. Actually, you know, football is something that has sort of grown up from a community sport. Glastonbury is was not created as some sort of commercial vehicle.
Not at all.
But all of these things do inevitably become capitalist machines, and very good ones. It must be said, they're very good at turning a profit. If they weren't, they wouldn't survive for very long. And you know, there is a shame to that. But ultimately, also, these things need to survive and become viable in some way. So, you know, as you say, there is a certain irony to people sort of going to these things and saying, you know, down with capitalism or whatever it might be. But ultimately, that is what has built Britain. And many of these people who are there, they profit from that as much as anybody else.
OK, briefly, Diana Moran, aren't these youngsters and the people at Glastonbury showing empathy for people fleeing for their lives across the Channel?
Not at all. I think it's just awful. I mean, I know we're a democracy and we're allowed to say what we want to say without, you know, getting picked up and put into jail, but I think this is totally wrong. This isn't helping the cause of the cause and the reality of the immigrants and the crossing.
It's cosplaying. I think it's cosplaying, actually.
What do you mean by cosplay?
Well, Marie Antoinette, the Queen of France, who was toppled by the revolution, had a pretend farm in the Palace of Versailles, and her friends used to pretend to be farm women, and they were in this pretend farm. And I think that's what Glastonbury is. I think it's this sort of pretend protest space. I think it started out as a genuine free festival, and now what it is, it's a load of sort of rich kids cosplaying, being sort of radicals.
Okay. Well, fair enough. A socialist utopia it ain't, for sure. But next up, on National Armed Forces Day, we've seen stunning tributes to our brave heroes from King Charles and Queen Camilla. We'll get reaction from the Queen of US showbiz and royal reporting, Kinsey Schofield, plus Princess Anne health latest. And is Joe Biden on his way out? All of that next.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Wiltshire police have arrested 2 people after they sprayed orange paint on Stonehenge.
Well, Just Stop Oil have shared a video saying it's to get the incoming government to sign up to a legally binding treaty to phase out fossil fuels by 2030. Of course, Stonehenge famously associated with oil, gas. I think the 5,000-year-old Neolithic Britons were prolific users of the internal combustion engine, and they drilled for lots of oil, so it makes perfect sense, of course.
Yes, we're going to be joined by Jill Taylor, a spokesperson from Just Stop Oil. Jill, thank you very much indeed. What on earth is this all about? This is just criminal activity under the guise of some kind of activism.
No, that's not, that paint will be washed off really easily. So it's not long-lasting damage at all, unlike the damage that is being done now by the fossil fuel industry, and just keeping burning fossil fuels, putting more CO2 into the atmosphere. You're right, the Neolithic people were not prolific users of fossil fuels. They did not cause the kind of damage that we're causing now. That's all been within since the Industrial Revolution in the 150 years.
So because
this is when the damage has been done.
So because this stuff can be washed off, ergo there's no issue here. Well, Stonehenge aren't particularly happy about this. They've come out on their social media page and they say Stonehenge is protected by the Ancient Monuments Act, and it is a criminal offence to damage the stones. There are also multiple rare lichen species growing on the stones that are also protected. So this isn't good for nature, is it?
I think you're getting things so out of perspective here. What isn't good for nature is the damage we're doing now, and what's not good for nature globally is not good for you, it's not good for me, and it's not good for the people watching this programme.
The People's Channel.
On election night, we are throwing a party.
The GB News Election Night Watch Party will be live from Essex, and you are all invited.
On air from 10 o'clock, we'll have familiar faces from across the channel, entertainment, and lots more stuff as we keep our eye on all the results as they come flying in.
If you want to join our live Election Night Watch Party audience, scan the QR code on screen or go to gbnews.com/election party.
It's time now for US News with the Queen of American showbiz, royal and political reporting, Kinsey Schofield. Kinsey, good to see you. It was lovely having you in the UK last week. You're back safe in California, and you were in your home country for what was the TV car crash of the year. The leaders' debate, the presidential debate between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Let's take a look at one particular low point for the sitting president.
For what I've been able to do with the with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare.
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either.
Oh dear, Kinsey, how long's he got?
Well, I mean, the New York Times editorial board, which is notoriously liberal and pro-Biden, is in fact calling for the 81-year-old to drop out of the race, saying his candidacy is a reckless gamble. I mean, meanwhile, a recent Ipsos poll revealed that 73% of the poll's participants felt Biden's performance was poor or terrible. CNN conducted a snap poll of people who watched the debate, and 57% said they don't have confidence in Biden's ability to lead the country. And the Daily Mail conducted a poll of independent voters. 62% of the 805 independents polled felt Biden should drop out of the race. So I think it's a fair question. He is saying he is not going to drop out of the race. We can expect to see him in the next debate in September. Will his delivery improve? I mean, I don't know, but it was exactly what you said. It was car crash television.
It really was. Another stat is that 66% of viewers watching thought that Donald Trump won. I don't know what the other 34% thought, because...
What were they watching?
I know, the world's gone mad. How do you think Donald Trump handled that? Did he just allow Joe Biden to unravel by himself?
I mean, I do think a lot of people were impressed with the way that he did not go full monster and just allowed Biden to kind of fall all over himself. I mean, even CNN's poll said that Trump gave a much better performance than Biden, 67-33. Ipsos saying 3 in 5 debate watchers felt Trump performed the best out of the debate. So I think that people were impressed that he didn't go as personal as he could have, and wasn't as mean-spirited as some people expected him to be.
Yeah, most definitely. I think he didn't have to do too much, did he, to win that contest. Let's talk about Prince Harry now. What's happening in his world?
Well, he's suing everyone. And I think that what you don't realize when you're suing people is the discovery process in a court case can be especially embarrassing. And headlines here in the States, specifically the Daily Beast, are focusing in on his embarrassing old email addresses. Some of them aren't that embarrassing. SpikeWales@hotmail.com, SpikeWells@hotmail. And then there's BazaSales69@hotmail.com.
Yuck.
Which is just something that you don't expect from a prince. So you don't expect somebody to, it's not what we expect from Prince Harry, Mark, or is it, I guess you should say. But, you know, this is one of the headlines coming out of, I believe, his son case. And, you know, just think before you sue, I guess, is the major lesson here.
And the American sports analyst Pat McAfee has spoken out about Prince Harry. What's going on?
Well, I can't quote half of this because there's so many bad words. But for context, Pat Tillman was a professional American football player who played in the Arizona Cardinals. He shocked the country when he gave up that lucrative gig to enlist in the U.S. Army after the September 11th terror attacks, and he was killed in Afghanistan in 2004. Now, Prince Harry is being honored by the ESPYs, the Pat Tillman Award, and Pat McAfee disapproves of this, and he came out swinging, saying that he doesn't agree that Prince Harry should share a sentence with the man, let alone be honored with the Pat Tillman Award. One of the members of his show described Prince Harry's nomination for the award as probably the most embarrassing thing they've seen in their entire lives, while McAfee questioned whether the ESPYs even did their homework on this candidate in the first place. It sounds like they're saying, to clean up their nasty words, that he's lazy, a Nepo baby who has no place being honored in this arena, and they say that that he should expect this type of criticism coming his way. He should know better.
Oh, most definitely. There you go. Embarrassing headlines for Prince Harry. He's familiar with those. Princess Charlotte, very protective of her mother, the Princess of Wales.
Sweet headline coming out of Hello Magazine. This is Ingrid Seward describing Charlotte as protective, very full of admiration for her mother, the Princess of Wales. She said, Kate and Charlotte are great friends, and I think to Kate, their bond is very precious. She also said, I think that Charlotte is really taking care of her mom. It was quite sweet the way she stood in front of her, and they kept chatting at Trooping of the Colour. We're getting a lot of fun Wales kids headlines between this week, last week at the Taylor Swift show. A lot of positive press coming their way, and we love hearing good news from the Wales family.
And apparently the most powerful royal in the country at the moment is not King Charles, but his son, Prince William. Well deserved. Kinsey, listen, I wish we had longer. We'll catch up in a week's time. My thanks to the Queen of US showbiz, royal and political reporting, Kinsey Schofield. Next up, the papers are in with full pundit reactions. Some great headlines. See you in 2.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Over the coming days, it's going to be fairly mixed out there. Some of us will see some sunshine, but there still will be some rain from time to time. And in fact, we've still got this area low pressure across parts of Wales and northern England, giving some cloud and rain here this evening. That will sink its way southeastwards, weakening as it does so. So very little rainfall across the south come the end of the night. To the north of it, some clear skies, but also still a rash of showers across parts of Scotland. Under the clear skies, temperatures just falling into single figures, but under the cloud, temperatures holding up around 15 or 16 degrees. So as we start Sunday morning, we continue with some showers across parts of Scotland, brought in on a fairly keen wind still. For many eastern and southern parts of Scotland, however, it should be largely dry here with some sunshine. The odd shower for Northern Ireland, but across parts of Northern England, Wales and the Midlands, actually, it's going to be a lovely start to the day. Plenty of sunshine here. Similar story for Devon and Cornwall, but further east, across southeast England especially, quite a grey start with the risk of the odd spot of rain. But this cloud and rain will clear off towards the continent as we head towards lunchtime. And for many parts of England and Wales, it's a dry day with some bright spells. Scotland and Northern Ireland continue the risk of the odd shower, but I think they've become fewer and further between into the afternoon. And come the end of the afternoon, I think the best of the sunshine will be down towards Devon and Cornwall. A cooler day for most, thanks to that northwesterly wind, highs at best reaching around 21 or 22 degrees in the south. Come Monday morning, a bright start for many eastern and central parts, but rain across the west will spread across many areas as we go through the course of the day. Main focus of the rain will be across the north, very little across the south, and that really sets us up for a fairly changeable week. Some dry weather to be had, but also the risk of some rain, especially in the north.
This election night, we're putting on a party.
And you are invited.
We'll be here with you.
Following all the twists and turns.
As well as all the live reaction from our election night watch party.
With our GB News lineup.
And as morning breaks, we'll be here with breakfast from 6 a.m.
As it becomes clear who the winners and the losers really are.
Vote 2024.
Thursday, the 4th of July.
Only on GB News.
Britain's election channel. Congratulations to the GB News winners at this year's Trick Awards.
And the winner of Interview of the Year is... Alistair Stewart reveals his heartbreaking diagnosis to Camilla Tominey.
And the winner is GB News Breakfast. And the winner is Nigel Farage.
And thank you to you, our GB News viewers and listeners, for making us the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The papers in just a second. As you know, I'm a very private person. I'm not one for indulgence, but I think this weekend is very special because my beloved Auntie Bernie and Uncle John celebrate 50 years together this weekend. 50 years! And there they are on their wedding day having a wonderful time. Auntie Bernie's so beautiful, Uncle John's so handsome. They're an amazing couple. And how about this? Take a look at this next photo because that's my Auntie Bernie. Stunning, I think you'll agree. And that is me, folks. Yes, a little drooling toddler, aged, I don't know, a year or a year and a half old. So I was part of the wedding too, in my lovely Auntie Bernie's arms. They are my godparents. I love them very much. And there they are today, looking as good as ever, celebrating 50 glorious years. So God bless you, Uncle John and Auntie Bernie. OK, folks, tomorrow's papers. The Observer now, and Starmer's promise to voters, I will relight the fire of optimism. Keir Starmer will tomorrow pledge to relight the fire of optimism and hope among the British people and rekindle their faith in politicians as public servants if they come out in sufficient numbers and vote for a Labour government in Thursday's general election. Mail on Sunday now. 4 days to stop supermajority is the headline. PM urges voters not to give Labour a blank cheque for tax hikes and an amnesty for illegal migrants. Rishi warning Starmer will wreck Britain in just 100 days. Sunday Express now. Starmer to wreck Britain in 100 days. Clearly a line coming out of number 10 there. Prime Minister's chilling warning on the eve of the election. Glasgow girls just want to have fun. That looks like Cyndi Lauper there performing at the Glastonbury Festival. iWeekend, UK Public sends clear message to Labour and the Tories. Save Britain's rivers. Voters overwhelmingly back the newspaper's Rivers Manifesto in a challenge to Sunak and Starmer as opinion polling shows massive support for the plan. 85% want water companies prosecuted, 81% demand a stronger watchdog, 78% support extra help for farmers, and 75% demand a boost to law enforcement to stop firms illegally dumping sewage with impunity. I think that's a campaign we can all get behind.
Very much.
Yeah.
Sunday Telegraph, Labour will bankrupt every generation, warns Sunak. In an interview with the Sunday Telegraph ahead of his final week on the campaign trail, the Prime Minister says that Sir Keir Starmer's party will hike taxes for people in every stage of life. Rachel Reeves, the UK will be a haven amid EU populism. Britain will be a safe haven for businesses under Labour as Europe turns to populism. That's based upon comments from the Shadow Chancellor, Rachel Reeves. And she's writing in the Sunday Telegraph. She said, "I want investors to look at Britain and say it's a safe haven in an increasingly turbulent Europe and the rest of the world." Jill Biden takes flak for urging the president on. Jill Biden is under fire from Democrat donors for refusing to advise the president to pull out of the 2024 presidential race.
We agree.
The Sunday Mirror now, 14 years of Tory chaos. Be on the right side of history this time. Vote Labour, say the Sunday Mirror. Daily Star Sunday now. Mr. Motivator issues positive vibes video for England fans that will 100% guarantee we win the Euros. Oh. How the hell can we lose now? Come on, everybody, do the motivation. Telly legend Mr. Motivator has recorded a special video for your unbeatable footy paper to make sure England win, and the players love it. And those are your front pages. Let's get full reaction now from tonight's top pundits with ringside action. We have political commentator Benedict Spence, journalist and model, the Green Goddess herself, Diana Moran, and anarchist and academic Dr. Lisa Mackenzie. OK, folks, we'll look at a very stark headline in the Mail on Sunday. Rishi Sunak warns Starmer will wreck Britain in just 100 days. Is a headline like that going to move the dial for the Prime Minister, Lisa?
No, because I think most of the country now would be asking, what is left to wreck? What is that? What's working? What is working that...
The economy's growing? I think we're currently number one in the G7.
I think the real economy, the way that people...
Unemployment's low?
Yeah, but the way that people experience, what I'm saying is, with the real economy, the way that people experience their own lives. Yeah, and they look, there's a lot of doom around. So I'm not sure what is left to wreck.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have no public transport. Parts of the country, we can't even phone people up. We've got no network.
And do you have confidence that will change under Labour?
No.
Why not?
Because I think where we are is just... I think most of us are thinking these are big issues. So the water, for example. How is that going to happen? Because the water is owned by many different private companies that have got thousands of shareholders. So how are we going to hold these water companies to account?
Well, you can jail their owners if they pollute the rivers.
We could, but again, and people would like that. But then what? How would we? Yeah. Where would the money come from for the infrastructure that we need?
Because it's billions.
Yes, and we know it's us. So you could jail them, but we're still paying.
Yeah.
So I think, and then you think about the electricity companies, the rail. What is left?
Benedict, what do you make of this headline in the Mail on Sunday? Rishi Sunak, Starmer will wreck Britain in 100 days. To give the Sunday Telegraph their fair dues, it's actually a Telegraph exclusive because it's from the Prime Minister writing for their paper.
I mean, it's not even particularly ambitious, given that Liz Truss did the damage in 40 days. So, I think it could be a lot worse. Also, what is there left to wreck? Actually, the passport service in this country is actually second to none. It's functioning very well. I can't speak for many other aspects of government, but if you need a passport in a week, you can get it.
That's true.
It's actually very good. The thing is, of course, as Lisa's sort of alluding to there, the issues that are facing Britain are major and structural, and the question is going to be whether or not Labour has the ability to address those, let alone whether or not it has the sort of vision to do so, whether it will have the mandate to do so. And we all know that they're going to get a very large majority. However, one of the major issues that everybody knows about now is planning. Actually, what stops things like power stations, reservoirs, new infrastructure and houses being built? It's the planning system. How do you deal with that? Because at a local level, people effectively have a veto veto on planning. And it doesn't matter if you try to sell it to them as, well, you need water to live. People go, that's nice, somebody else can have the reservoir over there. You need electricity. I don't want the power station. It's going to ruin my view. Put it somewhere else. This was a problem that the Conservatives also had. They did try. They ended up making it worse. But the problem that Labour is going to have, they're going to have this very large majority. But as Lisa's already alluded to, there are going to be lots of marginal MPs, new MPs, inexperienced MPs, who are going to be looking at the next 5 years and thinking, how can I ensure that I'm still an MP in 5 years' time at the end of the cycle? Can I risk irritating, upsetting, my local voters, given that my majority will be a matter of a few thousand? You'll see the same issue that the Tories had, Labour will have, which is backbench MPs going, no, we are not prepared to change the planning system because it will mean we get it in the neck.
Diana, I'm going to come to you in a second, but can I just ask you briefly, Lisa, what's the point of a Labour government if there's no money?
Well, I suppose it's the same as what's the point of any government with no money.
Well, the Tories like to cut, don't they?
They do. Well,
they were responsible for austerity.
But they haven't done a lot of cutting taxes, have they?
Yeah. What do you think about this? Are you persuaded by Sunak's words of warning here? Would that attract you to vote Conservative on Thursday?
Not particularly. It's whoever is going to attack the immigration problem, as far as I am concerned.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm very concerned as an older person with retirement tax. Yeah. I'm very concerned about the triple lock and what they're going to be doing with state pensions. So as I say, I have actually done my vote, but by golly, it's a minefield out there. I don't know how everybody is going to make up their minds.
Yeah, I mean, is there anything Rishi Sunak can do to change the course of political history? Because he's got a few days to go now. A week is a long time in politics. What do you think?
I think people have got so apathetic that they're not going to take any suggestions of his very seriously.
That's what I've heard from a lot of sort of insiders, is that the public aren't listening to the Conservatives anymore. No. What about these polls, though? Could they be shockingly wrong? Could we have a hung parliament or some other extraordinary event on Thursday? Wow. And Benedict, think carefully before you speak, because that could be a meme in a few days' time.
Oh, it could. I don't think... Do I dare say I don't think it'll be a hung parliament, because then it'll happen. I don't think it'll be a hung parliament.
That's your career done.
I don't think it'll be.
Taxi for Mr. Benedict.
Oh, I might as well put a bet on something, actually. We're through the looking glass. What shall we bet on? Who's going to lose their seat? Who'll win it?
Let me text the Tory MP to get the best prices.
I think it will be not as large a majority as people think. I do think there will be some shocks. I think some Labour MPs, some quite well-known Labour MPs, may in fact lose their seats in certain places, and that will be to do with things like, for instance, Gaza. I think that we're not really hearing very much about that because the size of the potential Tory wipeout is so large. But I don't think it's going to be all triumphalism from the Labour Party on the night. They are going to win, but it's not going to be the coronation.
What do you think, Lisa?
I agree. I think that it's going to be a very messy picture on Friday. Do you know one of the really interesting things about this is the Corbyn at North Islington? Because people in North Islington still think that Corbyn is Labour. Yes. And so they're sort of not sure what's going to happen, because people might just vote Labour thinking it's Corbyn. And I think what that tells us is that there are people who are very interested in politics and keep an eye on it, but most people are not. And so what happens is, they're not really sort of interested in the details. So I think the Corbyn situation might be interesting, just because people might be voting Labour because they think it's Corbyn.
Well, that's a fascinating thought, isn't it? Of course, all of the election coverage is going to be covered at GB News, your only destination. We are your election channel after all. But coming up, more newspaper front pages. We've got the Sunday Times on the way. And in the last word, in an extraordinary political development, are the Lib Dems going to win more seats than the Conservatives? Plus, Elton John backs Labour and he backs Sir Keir Starmer. Should celebs be getting involved in politics? I'll be asking our top Fleet Street insider next.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Giovanni is axed following growing allegations of threatening and abusive behaviour.
We won't see his little toes dancing around the dance floor again, which is a shame.
Was it the BBC saying, you know, we've had some bad publicity about this star, do we need to maybe let him go? Or was it Giovanni himself saying that, you know, he's had to, with all the bad publicity and what's the allegations against him, he's walked away? We don't exactly know. But what we do know is that Amanda Abingdon, who he was coupled with last year on the last series of Strictly, left claiming that she had nasty behaviour from him in rehearsals when they were training for their routines. And she's also been diagnosed with PTSD, which she is blaming or claiming happened because of the training that she was put under Giovanni. It's very sad because I've met Giovanni on quite a few occasions, and he comes across as a very nice gentleman, actually, and the fans absolutely love him. And even though the allegations are out there against him, everybody I speak to in terms of the fans are on his side.
I mean, from the fans' point of view, they don't see what goes on behind the scenes. All they see is an incredibly gifted dancer who we're seeing footage of now.
It might come out later, but there's all sorts of things coming out because after Amanda came out and claimed all this behaviour against him, a male celebrity last week also came out and voiced their opinion. Yeah, a lot of fans will be gutted, but as you say, we don't know the full story yet as what's gone on.
And it's incredible pressure that no one's allowed to be, a duffer right from the start now.
I mean, it's one thing learning lines if you're an actor, but it's a different kettle of fish altogether if you're learning moves that you've never done before. So you've got...
The People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
OK, more papers in. Let's have a look at the Sunday Times. And they lead with Labour eyes up green belt for building blitz and Deputy PM's grave concerns that Russians are boosting Farage's Reform UK. And changing of the guard for our top mandarins. Britain's most senior civil servant, Simon Case, is stepping down in January. OK, that is the Sunday Times, but lots more stories to get through in the company of the amazing Paul Connew. Yes, we're going to do the last word now. And in a remarkable development, are the Lib Dems going to win more seats than the Conservatives and become the official party of opposition in the House of Commons? Let's catch up with Fleet Street insider, former editor of the Sunday Mirror and political author and broadcaster Paul Connew. Paul, is it possible that the Lib Dems could have more seats than the Conservatives on Friday?
Some polls suggest they could. Others say they won't. It's something I look at in the new book I'm one of the authors of, called General Election 2024: The Media and the Messengers. And it's going to be pretty close. It's going to be pretty close. I wouldn't be totally surprised if that didn't happen, but my personal feeling is that the Tories will still just about hang on to second place, but a very distant second place in this election.
Yes, because amazingly, Paul, sorry to interrupt you, but if the Lib Dems were to get more seats than the Conservatives, then Sir Ed Davey would be the leader of the opposition, and the Lib Dems would be Her Majesty's opposition. It is possible, isn't it?
They indeed would be.
Wow.
And certainly of the leaders, I would say that Ed Davey is probably having the best campaign. Certainly people I know who are normally Tory voters, or even Labour voters, are all acknowledging that Ed Davey is coming across perhaps as the most human of the leaders.
Yeah, that's really interesting, isn't it? Now, Paul, let's have a look at the world of showbiz. And Sir Elton John, one of the best-selling music artists of all time, is backing Sir Keir Starmer. Josh, have you got the video for us? OK, let's take a listen to EJ.
We're backing Keir and Labour to win this election. There is only one choice. Let's help artists cut through the red tape that prevents them from thriving and contributing to this country's future success. Let's show the world what a creative, prosperous and forward-thinking nation Britain is.
There you go. He is still standing for Sir Keir Starmer. Your reaction to Elton's support for Labour, will it help?
It probably will help. Not that Keir Starmer needs too much help if the polls are right. But there's nothing new about this. There's a long tradition of showbiz, people going into politics. I mean, you could argue that some people like Boris Johnson were celebrities rather before they were politicians, in a sense. And, Ronald Reagan was an actor before he became president. President Zelensky was a comedian actor, in fact. So, and people like Glenda Jackson went from the screen to become a government minister. I could quote lots more of them. And of course, today you've got people like James Norton and Beverly Knight and Kit Harington of Game of Thrones fame, all coming out for Labour. But they're entitled to have their say. How much it influences the public, I'm not sure. I'm sure it has some impact, but not massively so. People have made up their minds in this election already. Well, obviously some haven't, but the polls can't be that wrong. There are too many of them pointing in the same direction. The only argument is the size of the Labour majority. If I'm putting a bet on, I'm going to put it at around 200, 210, not the 300 or 400 some are forecasting.
Well, I'm really surprised that Elton is supporting Labour because he wrote Blue Eyes. So I just assumed he was a dyed-in-the-wool Conservative. Listen, I'll be spending the next 24 hours working on Elton John-based puns around politics. Fear not. But let's get the views of my top pundits now. I'm delighted to have Diana Moran, the Green Goddess herself. We have the brilliant journalist and broadcaster Benedict Spence and the top academic, ethnographer and anarchist, the wonderful Lisa Mackenzie. OK, Diana Moran, should celebrities be getting involved in politics? Should they be endorsing future prime ministers?
There's no reason why they shouldn't, but equally, I think it would be as well. I certainly am not going to be shouting to you today what I've just done with my vote. I'd prefer to just quietly get on with it myself. We have a job to do. We're broadcasters, media people, journalists.
Correct.
Let's us stick to our job.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly would never declare. I will vote on the 4th of July, but I wouldn't declare. What do you think about this, Lisa? Do you think that the public care what Elton John thinks about politics?
I don't think so much now. I think in the past they probably have. I think, with when Tony Blair did the Call Britannia stuff, I think that made an impact. People were like, he's connected to Oasis, it's quite cool.
Yes.
So I think in the past it might have. I don't think so much now. I think young people today, are getting their media from elsewhere. They're not looking to the sort of famous people for advice on.
Yeah, I mean, Benedict, I've been a fan of Elton John since I was about 11 years of age. I consider him to be a total genius, maybe the finest songwriter this country's ever produced, and I'm including the Beatles in that. But what's the point in splitting the crowd in such a way? Because you're only going to ignore Lib Dem supporters, Conservatives, Reform UK and Greens with this advocacy for one party.
I mean, that's the tricky thing, isn't it? Obviously, in a democracy, you want to encourage people to be involved in politics. And if you have a large platform, it's entirely up to you. And some people would say it's a good thing.
Don't be so rude about Elton John and his large platform.
I knew at some point
he's in lovely shape.
Something was going to come along.
His body's a temple.
It is. It's a shame it's the Buddha.
Sorry seems to be the hardest word.
I think it's one of those where You know, if you have a very large platform, you can use it if you want to try and spread a message, and one of two things will happen. People may agree with you, but people may also disagree, and perhaps people might also take pot shots at you if you're not across all the facts. But I think it's also very important to say that people have a right, celebrities have a right not to get involved in politics that they don't like. We saw this a lot, of course, with the Israel-Palestine issue. Lots of people sort of haranguing different celebrities, saying, what is your stance on Gaza? Why don't you say this? Why don't you do that? It's actually nobody's business, necessarily, if you don't want to. And I mean, if what people want to do is spread their brand, you know, their sport, their music, whatever it is, they're entirely free to do that without sort of jeopardising it by going into politics. I mean, as Michael Jordan said, you know, Republicans buy sneakers too. So actually, if that's what's important to you, then you don't have to say anything.
Yeah, there you go. But all I've got so far, Rishi and the Wets, Saturday night's all right for voting, candidate in the win. Listen...
Oh, the comic.
It's going to take time. Listen, we backfired badly for Hillary Clinton, didn't it, in 2016 when she was facing Donald Trump for the presidency of the United States, because it looked like all these rich celebrities were out of touch with the public. Paul?
Well, for my sins, I once knew Donald Trump quite well when he was a celebrity businessman. And what made him President of the United States really was a TV show called The Apprentice. I only wish, for the sake of the Western democracy, he'd stayed as a TV star rather than running for the White House. And God help us if he actually regains it, which he possibly might after Joe Biden's performance.
Paul, I've got to interrupt you because I've only got a couple of seconds left. Your prediction for how many seats Labour might win by on Thursday, what do you think their majority could be?
I think about 220, 230, not the 300, 350, or even 400 that some forecasts
OK, well, listen, Paul, I look forward to getting you back on the show for full analysis, whoever wins. Don't forget, cast your vote. In Islington North, the candidates are Vikas Agarwal. We've got Lib Dems Jeremy Corbyn, Independent. Karen Ann Harries, Conservative, Paul Dominic Jostling, Independent, Sheridan Cates, Green, and Praful Nargund, Labour, Martin Nelson, Reform UK. There you go. So those are the candidates. And thank you for your company. It's been a really busy show. My brilliant pundits tonight. Most importantly, you at home for watching and listening. We're back tomorrow for Mark Dolan tonight with My Big Opinion, My Take at 10, and so much more. Well done to Maria, Josh and the team for an excellent effort today. I'll see you tomorrow at 9. Headliners is next.
Warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Over the coming days, it's going to be fairly mixed out there. Some of us will see some sunshine, but there still will be some rain from time to time. And in fact, we've still got this area low pressure across parts of Wales and northern England, giving some cloud and rain here this evening. That will sink its way southeastwards, weakening as it does so. So very little rainfall across the south come the end of the night. To the north of it, some clear skies, but also still a rash of showers across parts of Scotland. Under the clear skies, temperatures just falling into single figures, but under the cloud, temperatures holding up around 15 or 16 degrees. So as we start Sunday morning, we continue with some showers across parts of Scotland, brought in on a fairly keen wind still. For many eastern and southern parts of Scotland, however, it should be largely dry here with some sunshine. The odd shower for Northern Ireland, but across parts of northern England, Wales and the Midlands, actually, it's going to be a lovely start to the day. Plenty of sunshine here. Similar story for Devon and Cornwall, but further east, across southeast England especially, quite a grey start with the risk of the odd spot of rain. But this cloud and rain will clear off towards the continent as we head towards lunchtime. And for many parts of England and Wales, it's a dry day with some bright spells. Scotland and Northern Ireland continue the risk of the odd shower, but I think they become fewer and further between into the afternoon. And come the end of the afternoon, I think the best of the sunshine will be down towards Devon and Cornwall. A cooler day for most, thanks to that northwesterly wind, highs at best reaching around 21 or 22 degrees in the south. Come Monday morning, a bright start for many eastern and central parts, but rain across the west will spread across many areas as we go through the course of the day. Main focus of the rain will be across the north, very little across the south, and that really sets us up for a fairly changeable week. Some dry weather to be had, but also the risk of some rain, especially in the north.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's our summer treat to you. Your chance to win an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Our biggest cash prize of the year so far. With an extra £30,000 in your bank account this year, you could take the ultimate financial holiday and send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could get you those nagging home improvements done, buy that brand new car, or just enable you to kick back and relax for the rest of the year. For a chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Recent polling suggests dentistry has become the hardest NHS service for patients to access, within NHS treatments still 15% lower than pre-pandemic levels. So a YouGov survey reveals that more than 70% of Brits describe seeing the dentist as difficult, compared with 64% for GPs and 42% for A&E services. One British man, get this, he even took to flying 10,000 miles for dental care, saying the extra time and money spent was far less hassle than trying to get an appointment on the NHS. I mean, it's a sad state of affairs. And a shocking 1/5 of UK adults have also admitted to trying DIY dentistry, including the old trick of tying string